When he first saw Hajin, to be honest, he didn't feel a strong presence from him. He thought this was just the last struggle of a cornered rat, that's what he originally thought, so, he was confused by what he saw at this moment. As a flying beast approached him, and was about to shoot liquid from its mouth, Hajin was quite surprised, but, he didn't feel panicked at all. He then once again used his stigma's mana, and shot the flying beast dead with one shot, but Hajin didn't stop there. He continued to shoot forward and kill the beasts summoned by Asura. Asura was certainly shocked when he saw that. This really didn't make sense to him. She couldn't believe how could even after he summoned this huge demonic beast army, he still couldn't touch him. Looking at Hajin's body that was still free of wounds, let alone touch him, the beasts didn't even seem to be able to get close to him. Asura was completely disbelieved by the level of destructive power and reaction speed that Hajin showed. He seemed to be able to see the movement trajectory of the beasts he summoned very clearly. Looking at the beast army that couldn't even get close to Hajin, Asura was confused. He couldn't find an opening when he reloaded the magazines. He also realized that if he let it continue like this, his troops would be wiped out before he could defeat him. While Asura was dizzy thinking of a solution to this problem, he was then surprised when Hajin suddenly complained about the number of them. He seemed to be referring to the beast army that Asura summoned. The reason why he could do this was he already fused with the spirit. He was confused about what his goal was, whether it was revenge, or wealth and power, but, after thinking about it for a moment, Hajin felt that it was not important. He then returned to aiming his rifle at Asura. Seeing that, Asura immediately put on a vigilant attitude, and again enveloped himself with the beast army. Hajin felt that thinking about it would not change anything, and he then pulled the trigger again, but, in contrast to the sound of the bullet that he expected, only silence was what he got. Hajin was then surprised by that. He didn't seem to expect it at all. Not only Hajin, Asura and his beast army were also surprised as if petrified when they saw it, realizing that the bullets in his gun had run out. Hajin then fumbled in his pocket to look for a magazine, but, unfortunately, the bullets in the magazine had run out. Even so, Hajin did not seem to lose his composure. He then said to Asura, "Do you know, surprisingly, I don't hate you at all, I even understand you a little. You probably have no other choice but to take this decision to get stronger." Asura could only feel confused at his words. The reason why Asura, no, more precisely Chunwa, became a djinn was simple. Looking at Hajin who was just staring blankly at the magazine, Asura then realized something. He smiled at that. He was originally curious what nonsense he would come out with, but as it turned out, he had run out of bullets, even though Asura had discovered that. But Hajin didn't seem to panic at all. He didn't blame Asura for his actions and even felt a little sorry for him. Asura being like this was because that was how he wrote him to be. No backstory, no depth to the story. He was just another tool to provide development for the protagonist. Hearing Asura who thought that he had run out of bullets, Hajin calmly told him that he still had plenty. He also told him, no matter what kind of life he lived, his story would end here. Asura did not feel at all intimidated by his words and thought that he was just stalling for time. He also asked him, what could he do with an empty magazine? Thinking that he had won, Asura then ordered his beast army to attack him and tear him apart, but, as if slapped by reality, his beast army was slaughtered once again by Hajin's gun which he thought had run out of bullets. Asura, he couldn't even be called a villain. Seeing the beast army protecting him slowly being slaughtered, Asura seemed to be able to feel his approaching death. He's just an extra character that gives growth to the protagonist. That's how cliché stories work. While aiming his gun at him, Hajin was also thinking, and maybe, as the writer, I feel a little guilty about it. But, just before Hajin was about to pull the trigger, he suddenly heard Nayan's voice shouting for him. She asked if he was still alive. Seeing them coming, Hajin then raised his hand to greet them. He also said that Yona was safe. When Asura looked back, he then immediately became panicked when he saw so many people coming from there. He also saw people who used to be his subordinates like Udong-sik. He was confused why they were here. His subordinates were also as surprised as he was when he saw him successfully defeated by Hajin. They really didn't expect it. While clenching his hands tightly, Asura inwardly cursed. He wondered if they betrayed him. He really couldn't think of a way to get out of his current situation. He had already spent so much time and mana just to face one person. He really couldn't think of how he could win. But, in the midst of his despair, Asura was then surprised and panicked when he felt the movement of something in his heart. It seemed to be trying to get out of his body. Asura was very desperate to face it and frantically said that he still needed it, but, his plea seemed not to be heard. The horrible aura that enveloped his thickened, which then turned into a terrible spirit or wraith. They were then shocked when they witnessed it, and the wraith that was now approaching towards them. Seeing something with such a terrible form, Yonghan wondered if it was a wraith. Seeing their shock and confusion, Hajin then immediately calmed them down. He told them not to worry, the wraith was not a threat. He then called Suho. Hearing that, Suho knew what he meant. Mistiltine has the ability to absorb souls and become stronger, so, Suho then touched the wraith with a tree branch in his hand, and chanted for fun, abracadabra. Right after that, the presence and aura of the wraith that was so gripping was immediately purified and absorbed into Mistiltine. Now, that wraith will stay with Kim Suho forever within Mistiltine. After the main threat in this episode was finally eliminated, Hajin then tiredly rested his body. He didn't know how Suho managed to convince people in the past, but at least the ending was still similar to the one in the original story, although his body was fine, but mentally exhausted after endlessly fighting in the past few days. Hajin could only feel bitter about it. He then opened the system that had been connected to his smartwatch, but he was then shocked when he got various notifications from the system. Due to his slaughter of the demonic beast army summoned by Asura using his gun, his master sharpshooter proficiency has now increased dramatically and has risen to grade 5. Not only that, his luck exploded. For having exterminated thousands of demonic beasts with the dark attribute, Ether has gained increased understanding of the dark attribute. He also gained 330 SP after being seen in this episode. Hajin was certainly very happy to read these notifications. He even felt that his fatigue was gone now. Master Sharpshooter reaching grade 5 is certainly good, but the attribute understanding that's now been added to Ether will definitely have effects on the Desert Eagle as well. The power itself may not be as strong as directly investing SP in it, but, while Hajin was immersed in pleasure due to the growth of his power, he then realized something. Seeing Nayan who was looking at him with an unhappy look, Hajin confusedly asked why she was looking at him like that, but Nayan's confusion was even stronger than him. She asked him if he thought this situation made sense. What Nayan meant was about him changing the terrain and slaughtering the demonic beast army that the Asura summoned alone. Not only Nayan, Jonghak and others also seemed to be surprised when they saw the corpses of demonic beasts scattered there, but, as if not understanding what she meant, Hajin casually said that they would soon disappear since their mana link was broken. Nayan then got annoyed seeing Hajin not grasping what she meant. Nayan sighed for a moment. With a slightly blushing face, she said that he had made her feel embarrassed for worrying about him in vain. Hajin could only be silent without knowing what to react to hearing that. With a sour face, Hajin said that he had already told her that this was his talent related to firearms. While showing his rifle, Hajin said that everything was thanks to this. Seeing the rifle that was so dazzling, Nayan amazedly asked, "What is this?" Not only Nayan, Yonghan also looked amazed when he saw the rifle. Hajin explained, "This time round, I was just a really bad match for Asura, compared to swinging a sword 2,000 times. It's easier and more effective to kill a large number of weak enemies by just pulling the trigger 2,000 times. While listening to his explanation, they marveled at his rifle. Even Jonghak was no exception. Hajin then remembered something. He turned to Kim Suho and asked if he brought the crystals. Suho confirmed it. He then took out the crystals that were in his pants pocket and handed them to him. Seeing that, Yonghan then asked if they were going back now, but Hajin replied no. Instead, he said that they had to put these crystals back to their original position. Yonghan was then surprised and confused to hear that. Suho was the same. He confusedly asked, "Why do we need to do that?" Hajin explained, "Have you forgotten that this place is basically a gift from nature since it's not affected by the time of reality? We can train effectively here. Let's stay here for 2 more weeks." Nayan's eyes lit up hearing that. She seemed to really agree with his proposal. After that, Hajin then looked back and asked them, "And, right now, we also have way more people that we can duel against, right?" Realizing that the people Hajin meant were them, Yu Dongsik and his gang could only laugh awkwardly.